If you study medieval buildings closely enough, a quiet contradiction begins to appear. The wooden elements that should have failed long ago are still doing their job. Floors remain firm underfoot. Doors close squarely. Roof decking continues to carry weight centuries after the forests that supplied it disappeared. These structures survived damp air, seasonal cold, insects, smoke-filled interiors, and generations of use. Their endurance was not an accident, and it was not simply the result of thicker trees or superior forests. Medieval builders understood something modern construction often overlooks. Wood could not be trusted in its raw state. It had to be fundamentally changed before it became part of a structure. Freshly cut timber is unstable by nature. Moisture remains trapped deep within the fibers, and as it leaves unevenly, internal stresses develop. Over time, this causes boards to cup, twist, split, and lose strength. Medieval craftsmen worked in environments that made these problems worse, not better. Long wet seasons, poor ventilation, open hearths, and constant smoke exposure created conditions where untreated wood failed early. Replacement was slow, costly, and sometimes impossible. Builders quickly learned that installing raw boards was a risk they could not afford. Through observation rather than theory, craftsmen began to notice something important. Wood that had been exposed to certain liquids, heated environments, or prolonged smoke behaved differently. It stiffened, it resisted insects, it cracked less and carried weight more reliably. These changes were not decorative or accidental. They were repeatable. Over generations, those observations developed into a deliberate strengthening process that altered wood at a chemical level rather than simply protecting its surface. At the center of this process was tannin saturation. Tannins are naturally occurring compounds found in oak bark, chestnut, walnut husks, acorns, and certain leaves. Medieval tanners understood tannins well because they used them to transform animal hides into leather. Woodworkers learned from them. They discovered that tannins did more than stain wood. They bonded with it. Boards intended for flooring, doors, stair treads, benches, and structural decking were soaked in tannin-rich solutions before installation. Oak bark was stripped, crushed, and boiled for hours to produce a dark, acidic liquid. Rough sawn boards were submerged fully and weighted down to prevent floating. Depending on thickness, boards remained in the solution for several days or even weeks. During this time, three things happened at once. Free water inside the wood was displaced. Tannins reacted with lignin and cellulose, stiffening internal fiber bonds, and the wood became chemically unappealing to insects and fungi. When removed and dried, the boards were heavier, harder, and far more resistant to wear and compression than untreated timber of the same size. This strength increase was not cosmetic. Tannin-treated boards behaved differently under load. They bent less, cracked less, and aged more slowly. Yet once the process was complete, it left few obvious signs. Aside from a subtle darkening, the boards looked ordinary. Unlike charring or carving, there was no visible marker that announced the treatment. This invisibility is one reason the method faded from historical attention even as the structures themselves endured. After tannin soaking, boards were not rushed into use. Drying was the second critical stage. Instead of being exposed to direct heat or sun, boards were dried slowly in warm, smoke-filled environments. Low heat drove out remaining moisture without shocking the fibers. Smoke compounds, including phenols and aldehydes, penetrated the surface layers, sealing pores and adding further resistance to fungal growth and decay. Boards were carefully stacked with spacers to allow airflow, and craftsmen corrected early warping while the wood was still pliable. This process could take weeks, but once complete, the boards held their shape stubbornly. The combination of tannin saturation and smoke curing produced wood that behaved less like raw lumber and more like an engineered material. It resisted environmental stress, carried weight reliably, and failed slowly rather than suddenly. This treatment was not applied to every piece of wood. It was reserved for high-value components where failure could not be tolerated. In medieval buildings, tannin-treated boards were used for great hall floors, staircases, exterior doors, monastery benches, storage lofts, wagon beds, and castle walkways exposed to rain and sun. In fortifications, rot-resistant boards were critical. A weakened hoarding or walkway was not just inconvenient, it was a structural and defensive liability. Builders invested time where it mattered most. This method remains practical today with minimal adaptation. To replicate it, tannin-rich materials such as oak bark, acorns, chestnut shells, or walnut husks can be boiled for several hours until the liquid becomes dark and bitter. Rough boards should be fully submerged and weighted down to ensure complete saturation. Thin boards require several days of soaking, while thicker stock benefits from longer immersion. After soaking, boards should be dried slowly in a shaded, ventilated space. If possible, light wood smoke from a low-temperature fire can be introduced, avoiding direct flame or excessive heat. Boards should be rotated regularly and any early warping corrected with weights or clamps. The process adds time, but it dramatically extends service life. Tannin-treated boards are well suited for cabin floors, workbenches, exterior doors, raised storage platforms, and load-bearing shelving. In environments where maintenance is difficult or replacement costly, the investment pays for itself many times over. The survival of medieval wooden interiors is not a mystery. Builders understood that strength had to be created before assembly, not after failure. By altering wood at the cellular level, they reduced maintenance, conserved resources, and built structures intended to outlast their own lives. This knowledge was quiet, practical, and ruthlessly effective. That is why it endured for centuries, even after the technique itself slipped from common memory. If this explanation helped you better understand medieval craftsmanship and how it can still be applied today, subscribe to In the Beginning and share this with those who value the forgotten techniques that built the world we inherited.